On October 3, 2025, Boeing quietly announced the closure of its last shadow factory at Moses Lake, Washington, sending ripples through the American aviation industry. For decades, Boeing was a symbol of American ingenuity and global leadership. But the existence of these shadow factories, temporary sites for fixing undelivered planes, was a stark sign of how far the company had fallen. The closure marked the end of a painful 6-year chapter, defined by crisis, scrutiny, and a desperate scramble to recover from devastating failures. The shadow factories were a physical reminder of Boeing's struggle after the 737 MAX crashes and the subsequent crisis of confidence that shook the industry. These facilities, filled with grounded jets needing rework, became a symbol of corporate dysfunction and lost trust. As the last reworked plane left Moses Lake, it was less a celebration and more a moment of reflection on the company's future. The closure raised tough questions about Boeing's ability to reclaim its reputation and the impact on thousands of workers. For the Pacific Northwest, where Boeing's fortunes are woven into the local identity, the end of the shadow factory era was deeply felt. The chapter was over, but Boeing's struggle for redemption and America's faith in its aviation champion remains unfinished. The world now watches to see if Boeing can truly rebuild and lead once again. Shadow factories may sound mysterious, but they were simply a desperate solution to an unprecedented crisis. After the 737 MAX grounding in 2019, Boeing's main factories kept producing jets, creating a massive backlog of undelivered planes. These temporary sites in Moses Lake, Everett, and San Antonio became hubs for storing and fixing hundreds of brand new, but grounded aircraft. Skilled mechanics were diverted from building new planes to reworking grounded ones, performing software updates, hardware fixes, and safety checks. At its peak, Boeing had 450 undelivered 737 MAX jets, with Moses Lake alone housing 250. Each aircraft required constant maintenance to prevent deterioration, making the shadow factories a costly but essential operation. Their existence was a clear admission that Boeing's manufacturing process had broken down. In a healthy system, planes are built and delivered seamlessly, not parked for years awaiting fixes. The shadow factories were a necessary evil, highlighting the immense pressure Boeing faced to keep production moving despite a crisis. They stand as a costly lesson in what happens when quality control fails. The shadow factories were born from a cascade of safety and quality failures, not just a single mistake. The 737 MAX crisis began with 2 fatal crashes, traced to a critical software flaw in the MKS system, leading to a 20-month grounding. Meanwhile, Boeing's 787 Dreamliner faced its own crisis. Structural gaps in the carbon fiber fuselage halted deliveries and added to the backlog. Regulators, especially the FAA, responded with intense scrutiny, slowing the process of returning planes to service. Every fix and inspection required meticulous documentation and approval, further delaying deliveries. These crises exposed a corporate culture that had drifted from engineering excellence to cost-cutting and speed. The 737 MAX and 787 issues weren't isolated. They revealed systemic problems in Boeing's approach to safety and quality. The shadow factories, filled with planes needing fixes, became a monument to this era of dysfunction. Boeing's reputation for quality was shaken, and the industry took notice. The company's path forward would demand a fundamental cultural reset. Boeing's storage facilities became known as aircraft graveyards, with hundreds of new jets parked in vast rows. At the peak, 450 undelivered 737 MAX and over 100 787 Dreamliners sat idle, tying up billions in capital. Mechanics at shadow factories tackled FAA-mandated fixes, from software updates to detailed inspections for corrosion and wildlife. The 787s required even more painstaking work, measuring and repairing tiny fuselage gaps at thousands of points. Elite mechanics were pulled from production lines, slowing new builds, but essential for clearing the backlog. Their work was laborious, often more like maintaining old planes than delivering new ones. Over nearly 5 years, these teams methodically reduced the mountain of undelivered jets. The unsung heroes of Boeing's recovery, they worked in limbo to restore the company's credibility. The scale of the problem was staggering, and the solution, slow and costly. Clearing Boeing's inventory was a marathon, not a sprint. Each of the 450 stored MAX needed fixes, depreservation, and test flights, with progress limited by resources and regulatory oversight. By late 2024, the backlog had shrunk to 55 MAX 8s and 25 787s, thanks to a coordinated effort by thousands of employees. A breakthrough came in 2025 when China resumed accepting deliveries, accelerating the final push to clear Moses Lake. The closure of Everett's Shadow Factory and the final MAX delivery at Moses Lake marked major milestones. Top mechanics could finally return to main production lines, signaling a shift from crisis management to future building. The long road to recovery was ending, but the lessons and scars would remain. Boeing could now focus on rebuilding, but the shadow of past mistakes lingered. The end of the shadow factories was a milestone for Boeing. But the human story is more complex. Communities like Moses Lake and Everett lost hundreds of skilled jobs, leaving economic uncertainty in their wake. Many mechanics returned to regular roles, but temporary workers faced layoffs despite their crucial role in Boeing's recovery. Industrially, closing the shadow factories frees up resources and talent, allowing Boeing to refocus on new production and efficiency. Yet, the legacy of these facilities is a costly lesson in the dangers of neglecting quality control. The saga forced a cultural reset at Boeing and stricter oversight from regulators. The true cost isn't just financial, it's the erosion of a reputation for excellence. The memory of the shadow factories will shape Boeing's practices for years to come. Despite closing its shadow factories, Boeing still faces major hurdles. Dozens of new jets, including the MAX 7 and MAX 10, remain undelivered, stuck in regulatory limbo due to stricter certification processes. A newly discovered engine anti-ice issue has further delayed approvals, frustrating airlines and requiring major engineering fixes. Boeing's next-generation 777X, once slated for 2020, is also delayed, keeping the company from competing in the lucrative large jet market. These ongoing challenges mean Boeing's inventory problem has evolved, not disappeared. The company's ability to navigate tougher certification and resolve engineering issues will define its recovery. The closure of shadow factories was a victory, but the battle for market stability is far from over. Boeing's future depends on regaining trust and delivering on its promises. While Boeing focused inward, the global aviation landscape shifted dramatically. Airbus, Boeing's European rival, ramped up production and expanded its market share, especially with the A320neo. Other players, like Canada's Bombardier and Brazil's Embraer, found new opportunities as airlines diversified their fleets. China's Comac made inroads at home, and Airbus deepened ties in high-growth markets like India. Airlines frustrated by Boeing's delays turned to competitors, eroding the old duopoly. Boeing now faces a fiercely competitive market, entering from a weakened position with ongoing certification battles. The company must prove its safety culture has changed and innovate to regain lost ground. Closing the shadow factories stopped the bleeding, but restoring dominance will be Boeing's greatest challenge. The skies have shifted, and the next decade will decide Boeing's fate.